Leprosy is an ancient plague in modern times. It's been around a long time. I remember reading about leprosy in the Bible, and I think it's time for leprosy to meet its end. India and Africa are worst hit globally with leprosy, and there's been needless and unimaginable suffering. From my research, I've read firsthand accounts of individuals who have suffered with leprosy, and I've read many articles written on the topic from cdc.gov and websites such as webmd.com. The Bible tells us in Matthew 25:40, "And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you've done it unto the least of these, you've done it unto me, my brethren." Oh, Lord. The Bible tells us in Matthew 25:40, "And the king shall answer and say unto them, Verily I say unto you, inasmuch as you have done it unto one of the least of these my brethren, you've done it unto me." And in Luke 10:27-37, our Lord Jesus tells us to love our neighbor as ourselves, and he tells us exactly who our neighbor is. I believe that our neighbors in India would be abundantly blessed to be rid of the painful and emotional and physical suffering related to leprosy. So a preview of what's ahead. We're going to review what leprosy is. We're going to hear about the reports of leprosy in India, my proposal to eradicate leprosy in India, the prospective outcome if the proposal is implemented, and the consequences if it is not implemented. According to WebMD.com, leprosy is a slow-growing bacterial infection, Mycobacterium, also known as M. leprae. It's transmitted by close and repeated contact with droplets from the nose and mouth of an infected individual and handling infectious waste such as bandages or handling and eating the 9-banded armadillo. Guys, stay away from armadillos. Don't play with them. Don't eat them. Leave them alone. All right. So the health department in India no longer has a budget to eradicate leprosy. According to theguardian.com, 130,000 cases are diagnosed annually in India. And so my proposal is to ask the Indian government to include in their budget funding for every Indian citizen an optional annual lab screening for leprosy. If an annual lab test were provided for each individual, early diagnosis could prevent much suffering and the spreading of bacterial infection known as leprosy. The treatment would be given to the infected individuals. So if someone were diagnosed early, before too much harm is done, they could just continue life as usual. And it'd be a good thing for everyone. They could be spared physical suffering, such as the loss of feeling in the arms and legs, muscle weakness, disfiguring skin sores, lumps, bumps, thick skin, dry skin, painless ulcers on the soles of their feet, and it affects the upper respiratory tract, and it causes blindness. And I want to give a word of warning right now. I'm getting ready to show a graphic screen, so if you're sensitive, you might want to turn away. Okay, so these are individuals who are in the advanced stages of leprosy. You can see this gentleman here has blindness, and here's the disfiguring skin sores, lumps, and bumps. This gentleman has, a lot of lepers lose it affects their peripheral nervous system. So they lose some of their fingers, their digits, and their hands and feet. It's just rough. So, and then folks will just have a better quality of life because they'll be spared the emotional suffering that comes with leprosy. Being separated from their family, they're considered outcasts of society, and just the mental stress and illness that is associated with leprosy. right. According to CDC.gov, once infected individuals are given the multi-drug treatment, they can continue life as usual, family life, work, and play, without the severe emotional and physical pain associated with leprosy. Before there was a known cure, an infected individual was removed from their family and taken to a leper colony to live out the rest of their days. Now this is spina longa. It's a Greek islet, and when a Greek citizen was diagnosed with leprosy, their assets were seized and their identity was wiped clean. And they were taken here to live out the rest of their days with the other lepers. And it was just severe, being taken away from your family, never again to sleep in your own bed or eat at the dining room table with your family again. And then the physical issues. So it was considered the death before death on leprosy was. And let's see, leper colonies still exist today. And with early diagnosis and treatment, there will be no need for leper colonies. Without government-funded annual lab tests, leprosy continues to go undetected and untreated. The Wire.in tells us that of the new cases detected, nearly half, which is 67,000 cases, have been diagnosed at an advanced stage, like the pictures that I showed you earlier. And that number of new detections is high. If things continue as they are in India, there will continue to be greater than 130,000 diagnosed cases each year, and along with those numbers, unbearable suffering. So here, this is Ratna Kumari. She's a woman who was greatly affected by leprosy. According to the Wire.in, Ratna Kumari was a happy mother of 2 when she was diagnosed with leprosy. Her husband supported her, but he died shortly after her diagnosis, shortly after she began treatment for leprosy. Ratna was ostracized by her husband's family, and she was forced to leave the home and raise their 2 children alone. She has since been treated with the multi-drug cure, and it took 4 years for the cure to cure her from leprosy. But now she is an advocate for lepers. The Wire.in tells us of Kumari. Today she sits on the panel of the International Federation of Anti-Leprosy Associations that works for leprosy patients. She works with Leper Society's referral center in Mungar, Bihar, and she tells us, "My dream is for the world to be leprosy free. I tell every new leprosy patient not to feel ashamed, but to hold their head high and not to have any fear," she said. "If we all work together with sincerity, we can eradicate leprosy just as we did with polio." So that's Ratna Kumari, and I admire her. So my recommendations to you, ladies and gentlemen, is to contact representatives at ILEP, at ilepfederation.org, and present the above suggestions to them and ask them to take it before Parliament for nationwide implementation. According to ILEP, they are a consortium of international and non-governmental organizations with a shared desire to see a world free from leprosy. The members of ILEP know Ratna Kumari, and I believe with ILEP and Mrs. Kumari teamed together, they will have the fortitude and the wherewithal to move this proposal forward. So a few things to remember. In closing, we have learned that leprosy continues to affect many people in India, with greater than 130,000 cases diagnosed annually. I've shared my proposal for the Indian government, asking them to include in their health budget funds for every Indian citizen to receive a voluntary annual leprosy screening for early detection and treatment. I've also shared the positive outcome if my proposal were put in place, and also the consequences if continued status quo. Lastly, I provided contact information for ILEP Federation, and I encourage you to reach out to them with a proposal for annual lab tests for each Indian citizen for early detection and treatment. ILEP can bring this proposal before Parliament, and this action can prevent needless emotional and physical trauma and suffering in the lives of many people, and leprosy can be eradicated. Thank you. Are there any questions?
None for me.
Thank you, sir.
I'm still here.